I'm standing with a set of Electro-Voice front-of-house PA speakers. The top unit handles the highs and the mid-range frequencies, and the bottom woofer cabinet handles the low frequencies. Your choice of house speakers should be based on several variables, such as how large the venues are you'll be playing, the type of application being considered, or the type of music you play, as well as the type of transportation you have available to you and how much you like lifting heavy objects, because these are really heavy. You'll also need to make sure that they're matched to your power amplifier so you don't blow them up. These subwoofers are rated at 400 watts at 8 ohms, and the top cabinet is rated at 300 watts at 8 ohms. Take notice of the types of inputs the cabinets you buy have. Since there's a passive crossover in the subwoofer cabinet, you'll need a cable to connect it to the top cabinet. Both of these cabinets have different input types. Be careful when buying cables. We'll need a speaker cable that has a speak-on connector on one end and a 1/4 inch connector on the other. The top cabinet, having two different speaker types, also has a passive crossover. What are these crossovers I'm talking about? Well, there are two types, passive and active. Let's look at the differences and why we should have them. If your system doesn't have any built-in crossovers, or you don't have any standalone crossovers, your speakers are just going to have to deal with whatever outputs from the power amps they're presented with. As you can see from the diagram, it's pretty straightforward. Right output to right speaker and left to left. Remember again that it's imperative that your amp's output does not exceed your speaker's power ratings. Hopefully it doesn't come close. Crossovers are by far the best way to get efficiency out of your front-of-house speakers. The best sound is delivered by speakers that specialize in handling specific frequency ranges. To make sure that the frequency ranges they want to handle actually reach them without forcing them to handle the other frequency ranges, we use crossovers. A crossover takes your mixed signal and subdivides it into multiple frequency ranges, usually 2 or 3. Passive crossovers are a series of hardwired electronic filters that subdivide the frequencies. They're located in the signal chain between the power amps and the speakers. When the passive crossover receives the power amp's output, it delivers the highs to the tweeters or horns, the mids to those speakers, and the lows to the subwoofers. What you wind up with is sound being delivered to the optimum type of speaker for the frequency in a pretty cost-effective manner. Interestingly, many PA speaker manufacturers, such as these Electro-Voice speakers, contain internal passive crossovers that distribute the amp's output to the appropriate speakers. Even though they're located within the speaker cabinet, they're physically placed in the signal chain between the power amps and the actual speakers themselves. A single power amp channel can accommodate all the frequency ranges. Active crossovers, on the other hand, operate differently. When active crossovers are used, a separate power amp channel is required for each frequency range. Instead of being located between the power amp and the speakers, the active crossovers are located in the signal chain between the mixer's output and the power amps. They analyze the unamplified signal and route it to the appropriate power amp. This is a more efficient system, however it's much more expensive. So when you're shopping, make all the appropriate inquiries about the capabilities of the speakers that the salesperson is showing you. Do they contain passive crossovers? If they do, you may only need one 2-channel power amp to drive both the left and right sides. If you need to buy a separate crossover unit, remember, if you choose to use active crossovers, you'll need a separate power amp for each frequency range. If your speakers are going to have high-frequency horns, mid-range speakers, and subwoofers, that means 3 2-channel power amps to handle 3 frequency ranges for both the left and right sides. Also, you'll need to ensure that each power amp is matched to and does not exceed the power rating of each type of speaker you're going to have in your system.